Welcome to the ADHD Women's Wellbeing Podcast. I'm Kate Moore-Youssef, your host, and if you've arrived here, there must be a reason. I'm guessing you're curious to learn more about improving your wellbeing alongside ADHD, or maybe looking for some advice or guidance to feel healthier and calmer. So, why start this podcast? I'm a wellbeing and lifestyle coach, EFT practitioner, mum to 4 kids, and I discovered my own ADHD alongside one of my daughters at the age of 40. And now, after supporting many other women just like me, and probably you, I feel there's a need for more emphasis on well-being and lifestyle help for women with ADHD. And through the podcast, I want to offer you new insights and perspectives to enable you to live your most fulfilled, calm and balanced life. So wherever you are on your ADHD journey, my aim is to support you in finding the awareness and the most aligned tools to enhance your well-being so you can make the most intentional mindset and lifestyle choices moving forwards. Ready to get started? Here's the episode. Hi everyone, welcome back to the ADHD Women's Wellbeing Podcast, and this is a bonus episode. I know, exciting. And the reason why we've got this bonus episode is because I've got a very special guest who is organising a fantastic event, and I wanted to make sure that you had access to it. So today's guest is Katie Taylor, and she is the founder and CEO of the Latte Lounge, an online platform for women over 40, which exists to help women in midlife thrive at home and in the workplace. And Katie created the Latte Lounge in 2016 after suffering for 4 years with misdiagnosed symptoms of perimenopause. Her community now supports more than 50,000 women with evidence-based information about women's health, backed by a medical advisory team. And it's a confidential space for midlife women to connect online, gain access and signposting to a range of health and wellbeing experts. Sounds amazing. And the Latte Lounge also hosts a variety of events, which is what we're going to talk about today, including a hero event called the Midlife Festival, which last year in 2021 saw more than 4,500 women register to join. And she is also proud to be a hashtag Make Menopause Matter campaign team, which I've heard about, founded by Diane Danzenbrink. That's a lot there, Katie. Welcome to the podcast. Delighted to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we are coming on as a bonus episode because I truly believe that what you are providing, I think with the Latte Lounge in itself is an amazing service, but you are organising a midlife festival, which is no mean feat, with loads of different menopause experts. And I know that menopause and ADHD for you is a cause close to your heart. It's something that you are going through as well. And I just wondered, really, let's backtrack and come to the whole reason why you wanted to set up the Latte Lounge, and what has that provided for you, and what does it now provide for lots of other women?
Sure. Well, when I was 43 years old, I was, like you, mum of 4 kids, juggling a lot, but coping really well and enjoying my life. And I had a really good job working for a charity in communications, a lovely husband that I've been married to for 25 years, and life was good. And I just managed to cope. But what I founded over the next 4 years, so 43 to 47, just symptoms started very slowly, just things like I'd be walking the kids to school, and a normal sort of 5-10 minute walk for me, it felt like I was walking in sticky treacle. I was exhausted. It took everything out of me to even make that journey. And then things like I was just a bit forgetful, and my friends would laugh as we were walking to school. They're like, "Oh, Katie, I bet you've forgotten where you left your car today. Ha ha ha! And don't you remember I told you that?" And I'd be like, "What's her name?" Like, you know who that is. And then when I was going to work, I just suddenly suffered this brain fog where I just I was a coper. Normally I could walk into a meeting, if it was a board meeting or just a team meeting, and I knew what I was going to say. I knew who everyone was and what was expected with me, and I'd get on with my day. But I found this brain fog really overwhelming and scary. And I, almost thought, oh my God, have I got early onset dementia? But I kind of brushed it aside. And then I started some really low mood, very teary, never suffered from anxiety before. And I started having heart palpitations and anxiety. And I just thought I was maybe either I'm a hypochondriac or maybe I'm just juggling too much. So I went back and forward to my doctors. Well, the first doctor said I was suffering from depression and just said take antidepressants, which I was resistant to do because I had a great life. What did I have to complain about? Then, when I had heart palpitations, I was sent to a heart specialist for monitoring. They couldn't find anything wrong. I was sent to a psychiatrist who again said it's depression. I also had aching joints, and he even said the reason why I had backache was because I was depressed. And he actually even said, you're overweight. And I wasn't that over, maybe I'd sort of put on a stone without realizing it. But I was quite offended actually because, I tried my best to exercise and eat well, but I just didn't have that energy. Anyway, to cut a long story short, in the end, I just thought, well, I'm obviously depressed. So I'm going to take these antidepressants and I'm going to see if I can work part time at work because I just couldn't cope. The antidepressants didn't do anything. It made me feel very numb. I felt disconnected with the world. I became a shell of a woman. I was always very kind of outgoing and sociable. And I just wanted to stay at home and became a hermit. No one at the time, I didn't have hot flushes. I was still having periods, but my periods did become a lot heavier to a point where there were some days where I was just drenched and there was no way I could even leave the house. And I became severely anemic. I lay on the couch sleeping and crying all day. And no one had ever sort of asked me about my periods. Eventually, thank goodness, my father, who's now a retired breast cancer professor, I went to see him after 4 years. And by this point, I must say, I had to give up my job. That I basically thought, I can't, maybe I just can't have it all. Maybe I can't juggle kids and work. And so I'm just going to give up work and just try and find a way of feeling better. But as I said, my father said, Katie, I think this is hormonal. I know you're 47, but I think you should go and see a gynecologist now, especially as you're bleeding very heavily, but someone who specializes in hormones. So I couldn't get seen on the NHS for absolutely ages. And I thought, well, I can't wait. The waiting list was about 6 months. So I had to go privately. And within a 10-minute consultation of me telling her my symptoms, what I've been going through, she just looked at me and said, well, this is classic perimenopause. And I said, well, what is that? I'm not menopausal. I'm not old, grey haired old lady fanning herself in the corner. I'm young. That's not me. And she said, perimenopause is that, it can be last up to 10 years before your last period when menopause occurs, which is a year and a day since you're after your last period. And the drop in estrogen levels, my estrogen levels were on the floor, means that you're suffering with all these symptoms. She prescribed hormone replacement therapy there and then after taking a family history. And it was a light bulb moment. I was like, oh my God, first of all, I'm not going mad. Thank God I haven't got dementia. And there was a reason for these symptoms. And so to cut a bit, in a longer story short, I went home to my bed that night and I was relieved, but fueled with anger that I had kind of I didn't know myself, B, that my doctors hadn't recognized it, and that I've kind of lost, I'd lost a good job and I'd lost myself. So I turned to Facebook because at the time Instagram wasn't really around. Actually, I don't think it was around. And Facebook groups at that time were talking mainly about mums with young babies and kids and toddlers and nappy rash and play dates, and there was no one chatting about this next stage, the sort of midlife menopause stage. So I thought, oh well, I'm going to set up a Facebook group for women over 40 because I was in my 40s. And I thought I'd get a couple of people join, and a few of my friends were making fun of me, going, look at you with your little Facebook group. And I felt a bit of a failure because I had a good job and suddenly now all I'm doing is a Facebook group, and it was a bit, bit pathetic in my eyes. But that night I was overwhelmed with Facebook member requests. I had over 1,000 members request to join that night. And I then realized, okay, this is not me. This is a huge issue all over. So that's the story behind it. The reason I then decided this has got to be more than a Facebook group is not because the stories from these women made me realize that they needed a lot more support, a lot more information. And I guess as a doctor's daughter, I wanted to provide evidence-based information. I wanted to put together medical advisors and well-being experts who could really, support these women properly so that they weren't just coming, dumping their problems. Well-meaning, women were saying, "Oh, try this, do that," but actually they were being helped. So yeah, that's the the long and short of it.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot of crossover. I'm listening to you, and really, we come from two different communities, but actually the communities that we both kind of advocate for, they're so enmeshed as well. Because what we're noticing now is that ADHD is becomes a lot more prominent in perimenopause, something that we will discuss, and we are advocating for women who where there's not the resources aren't there, maybe the knowledge, and there's a patriarchal system of women being brushed to the sidelines and us having to accept that this is just a natural course of life. And the fact that what you were going through, it does sound extreme, but you weren't the only person going through that, and you're not going to be the only person. And I hear this all the time, that women who are still in their prime, still working, and they've got young kids at home, and especially now as women are having children later on, perimenopause is going to show up while we're in the throes of life, and we need to be prepared for it. We need to know about it. We need to help ourselves, empower ourselves, and know that it's not the end of our life, and know that it's, we can still look fabulous on the outside and feel great on the inside as well. And I think there must be so many women that are very, very grateful for what you've done, and you put yourself out there, and it can't have been an easy thing. It was obviously very brave, very vulnerable thing to be able to talk about what you were going through, because like you say, on the outside things were great. You had a good job. Again, we've got the crossover. We've got 4 kids. I think we worked in a similar industry in PR and marketing before. And when you feel that you're, whether it's, you can't articulate yourself properly, you start doubting yourself, being able to doubt yourself in a meeting, that has a massive impact on your confidence and your self-esteem. And women shouldn't have to go through that. So tell me a little bit now about how you're helping women within the Latte Lounge, and all the different experts that you bring in, and I guess what you're going to be providing with the Midlife Festival, which just sounds fantastic, and I know that will be, hugely popular.
Yeah, well, we do a variety of different things. Obviously, there's the website, which is full of free resources. And I think if anyone's listening who hasn't had a diagnosis, but perhaps is starting to have their own light bulb moment, there's a menopause resources area there. And I would recommend everyone prints off the free downloadable symptom checklist. There's a great article on how to prepare and speak to your doctor as well, and loads of information about treatment options. For women who can't take HRT or don't want to, there's loads of other blogs on there about what other options are available to you. We also have a membership that we launched this year, and the membership is a lot more hands-on. So we have master classes, like, with wonderful people like yourself. And that the reason I did that is because I'm overwhelmed with women needing one-to-one or small group support. And I just, however much I want to do it, I can't. So we have coffee chats on Zoom once a month with women. We have master classes once or twice a month. We have lots of offers for them as well. So the membership's a really great way to sort of help people in more detail. We also launched our own podcast again at the beginning, this spring, another, very useful way of getting some help while women are perhaps walking the dog or going to work or commuting. And I want all men to also be part of this conversation, because relationships break down, sadly. And I think if men are learning, and then they perhaps will know how to support their partners better. I do, as you said at the beginning, a lot of work, corporate work. I want women to stay in their jobs if they want to, because I couldn't. So I do a lot of things in the workplace, from small group events where we talk about what is menopause and why it happens, and writing policies and having menopause champions in the workplace, and how women can be supported to stay in their jobs. And then every year we used to, on our birthday, which is in June, and it's now our 6th birthday this year, we used to have an event of some sort, and they used to be in person. And then during COVID, in lockdown, they went online. And what I realized was I've just been so lucky to work with so many amazing experts over the last 6 years. And I wanted last year to find a way to kind of bring them all together online because it's so much easier. And during World Menopause Month and Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is both lies in October, so the women have the option to tap into all these amazing experts during a festival. And I want to call it a festival because I don't want menopause to define your this time in your life as a really miserable, depressing place. I want you to get the support you need as soon as you need it, and then find ways to really embrace this next chapter of our lives. So the Midlife Festival this year runs from October the 10th to the 14th. We've got some amazing speakers, obviously some well-known faces like Davina McCall and Loose Women's Nadia Sawala, and many of you will know Professor Tim Spector, who was so there for us all during COVID. He's going to be talking about gut health. Obviously, yourself, and loads on fashion and beauty and health and fitness, and skincare, and just it's just a way of celebrating midlife, and hopefully women will come away feeling really informed and empowered. And that whole week is free. Now, for those, I know we all lead busy lives, so if you miss a session or you want to watch back on demand, because there's a lot of information also from some world leading menopause specialists, there is an option to get a VIP pass, and that will all be on the Midlife Festival website.
I'm so happy to see so many of you signing up for my ADHD burnout workshop, which is happening on October the 12th at 12:30 p.m. UK time. And it seems that so many of us experience this cycle of overproductivity, exhaustion, and then crashing. And now, many of us with a new lens of ADHD and a new understanding, we're ready to create better awareness around this topic and make some intentional changes to our lives from all aspects. And burnout doesn't just have to be present in our careers, it can show up in parenting, friendships, and just purely overgiving with very few boundaries and prioritising everything else apart from our own emotional well-being. So during this hour's workshop, I'll be offering you more awareness of how ADHD burnout can show up, what it feels and looks like, and offer you new tools and perspectives to make changes that feel right for you. I'll also be answering questions because I know when I answer one question, the answer helps many. So all the details are in the show notes or my website, coachingbykate.me.uk, and you can buy all the tickets there. And if you can't make the live show, don't worry, you will be able to, if you buy the ticket, you'll get a recording link very soon after. I really do hope to see you there. Talking about ADHD and menopause, I've had a couple of episodes already. It's something that crops up all the time. I know we've done some work together. I'm going to be talking about it on the Midlife Festival. How are you seeing it manifest in your community? And I know from a personal perspective, there's ADHD going on in your family. You've had children diagnosed. You suspect that there's ADHD with you. We've had a conversation together where I'm like, yes, I think you might have it. And that's why probably we get on quite well. Quite well, very well. So I'm thinking, how are you seeing the ADHD play in your community?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about the personal side of things afterwards. In the community, it's really hard to make these diagnoses, isn't it? Because there's so many crossovers between what is menopause, what is potentially ADHD. And I always say to people, look, first port of call is take that symptom checklist to your doctor, read up and inform yourself on ADHD and on the menopause as well. Because, we only get these 10-minute appointments, if you have private health insurance, or, you're lucky enough to be able to get an appointment. You might have a bit longer, but I just always say to him, look, if you do suspect it, don't waste any more time, just go and get support. And it's just really confusing time. And I think for myself, what happened, you were my absolute light bulb moment, that when you actually emailed me a few months back and just introduced yourself. And I found it absolutely fascinating because I've got 4 children like you. 2 have already been diagnosed with ADHD. One I suspect, and I have a husband who paces when he's on phone calls for work, non-stop all the time. I'm
So
like,
do
well, he's
I.
right, stop bloody pacing, and I'm going, oh, maybe he is as well. But see, for me personally, there were a few things I'd never even considered. So, for example, and a lot of people will know the story who know me. When I was in my last year at university, I tragically lost a very, very good friend who I lived with. It was a very traumatic time in my life. And I remember while everyone else was in shock and crying hysterically, my first natural response was to go to the corner shop and buy a Mars bar. Don't ask me why, it was just one of those things. And I remember eating that Mars bar, and suddenly I had this craving. I just needed more and more and more and more and more. And I think what happened at the time, I just thought, well, that's just, I'm just trying to drown and push down my feelings of grief. And in those days, there was no offering of counseling. Even when I came home, it was sort of our friends, we all sort of tried to support each other. But I very quickly after went traveling. I'd finished, sadly, it was just before we were graduating. So I didn't get a graduation. And I went traveling around the world. And I was gone for a year and a half. So I didn't even really have sort of emotional support at home. I just left the country. And my coping mechanism turned to sugar. And I'd never heard of the word binge eating. And I just thought, well, I'm just overeating. Oh, I'll just diet and lose it. And then whenever things were bad or I was stressed, I'd eat again. And I remember my sister, who's a journalist, sent me a book by an amazing lady called Lee Janogly, which was called How to Stop Binge Eating. And she sort of said, do you think this is you? And I was like, oh, well, I don't know. It sounds really interesting. And I read it. And I've spent most of my life berating myself, thinking you're just greedy. Why can't you control yourself? Maybe it's just because it's a bad habit. So when you mentioned that, something like eating disorders, in particular binge eating, is part of ADHD brain. That was a light bulb moment for me. I also love being like you, very creative, and I love helping people. And I have all these amazing ideas sparking here, there, and everywhere, and I want to help the world. But then I get to a point, and I do it. I take on a lot, and then I get suffer burnout, where I actually at some point crash, and I need to take time out, and then I build myself back up again eventually, and do it all over again. But I have terrible low self esteem as well, which was another thing you said. Everything I say to myself is, oh, you're ugly, you're fat, you're stupid. Why are you doing this? You're not really an expert. You're just you. So there's a lot of negative narrative going on in my brain. And when you told me all these things were symptoms, actually, if I am, and I actually hope I am, because then it gives me validation that I'm not all those horrible negative things that I've told myself, but actually I'm okay. It's just my brain. um, but the thing I've found, even with my kids, is the older generation, so parents and that generation, they're like, oh, stop labeling everything, and you're just in our day we just called them lazy and stupid, and that's not very kind, is it?
No. No,
um,
I mean it's first of all, thank you for sharing that because I know it's not easy to talk about these things. And I think by sharing your story, so many other people and women will be resonating. And I hear this a lot. First of all, trauma very often can kickstart ADHD. There's a big school of thought that there's ADHD always lies dormant, it's always there, you're born with it. But certain things in life can kickstart it. So it can be something traumatic early on in life, or it can be something like hormones, menopause, that type of thing. But how you described the onset of your perimenopause, and a lot of women suffer quite badly with their hormones with ADHD. They're very interconnected. So if you've had historic PMS or PMDD, and that's always debilitated you, along with cramps and migraines and heavy bleeding. There's lots of evidence now coming up showing that there is a connection with ADHD, but also now with if you're feeling the symptoms of perimenopause quite heavily, like some women just breeze through it, they don't even notice. So many women are just not understanding all the interplay and the fact that you had that light bulb moment with the binge eating and the sugar and the imposter syndrome, what you're describing. Yes, there's a huge amount of self-criticism, but that imposter syndrome where we are just not recognizing how good we are and how proficient we are and how the contribution that we're offering to the world, and we play everything down, and that's just a very tiring, exhausting way to live. And there's the other aspect of, and I don't know if this resonates with you, with rejection sensitivity, where you're highly sensitive where anyone can say anything and you'll overthink it and worry about it and it'll just sit with you, or there'll be like a physical reaction to something that potentially could go wrong, like a judgment or a fear of doing something wrong. And again, this plays up in ADHD with women a lot. So there's so many different layers to how our ADHD can inhibit us from doing all the things that we want to do. You know, like you've created this amazing community and all these people, you know, helping all these people, and there's still all this doubt that's going on. So we have to, I think, getting an ADHD diagnosis is a huge validation, because what happens then is we are able to separate ourselves from all the noise that's going on and all the interplaying and all the enmeshment of how we see it going on in our life. And we can go, right, that's the ADHD showing up. That's the RSD. That's a part of my brain that likes to keep me safe, keep me small, not put myself out there. That's the part of me that's protecting me. Then there's the other part of me, you know, the binge eating, where that's the dopamine and the receptors and all the different elements that we can distance ourselves and almost kind of take a breather and go, right, that's happening. I'm just going to kind of allow it to play out, but I know that in reality, I'm doing a great thing. I'm helping lots of people. I don't know if that helps you at all.
It really, really does. And it's funny that whole self protection thing, which I haven't even mentioned, resonates hugely with me. And I think I do. I sort of retreat to my safe zone rather than I pick up on the most minute things which other people wouldn't even notice, and I go, oh God, they said that, they must think that. And huge anxiety about being late for things, so I'm terribly early for everything. So yeah, it's been great. Actually, I'm so grateful our paths have crossed, because actually, I feel like in some ways I've sort of sorted my own perimenopause and menopause journey, and now this is a part of my life which I can now read much more about, listen to your podcasts, your previous ones, and also help other women, because I hear so many stories like myself, and I'm starting to think, oh, I actually recommended your podcast just yesterday to a journalist I work with, who had the same light bulb moment. She'd never even considered it.
Mm.
Uh, and she listened and she said, oh my God, thank you. Thank you. So thank you, Kate.
Oh, well, thank you for that. And I think what the situation is that the more we have, the more awareness we have, the more we're able to be like, okay, I'm not broken, I'm not stupid, I'm not doing things wrong, I'm not flawed, I'm not, you know, all the self-criticism potentially, you know, just even you having to make sure that you're always early because you're worried about being late. That must be a huge mental tax for you. That must be, you know, something that you're always worried about and anxious about. And I see this a lot of women overcompensating, worried, over checking, you know, reading too much into things. And that time that we spend on the anxiety of the worry of something potentially happening when it may not, we could be doing something else. We could be going out for a nice walk. We could be having a chat with a friend. We could be relaxing. So it's just all about kind of seeing where it shows up and actually kind of reframing or questioning what would happen if I am 3 minutes late? What would happen? You know, maybe that person needs me to be 3 minutes late. Maybe that person needs me to be 10 minutes late. So there's all these different, you know, things. But I think there's a lot of women probably in your community who, and I don't want to generalize here, but if you are suffering quite badly with your menopause and your perimenopause, kind of shows up that there's like hormone sensitivities there. You're really sort of in the thick of it. And that very often has an interplay with ADHD, because the hormones do have such a big impact on our ADHD. So there's probably a lot more women, you know, I think there's something like 7% of the population have got ADHD. So it's not that uncommon.
Mm,
And what a lot of people think is that men are more likely to have it, boys are more likely to have it, but that's not the case. There's now evidence to say that it's exactly 50-50. But what's happening is that more men and women are being, more boys and men are being diagnosed because it's easier to spot. So now the more conversations that we're having, the more we're able to help ourselves, but we're also able to help our daughters. And I just think, you know, how wonderful to be able to know at the age of 14 or 16, for them to have that awareness moving forwards, because it doesn't go away, and so we can manage our lifestyle and our choices to what works for us, as opposed to having to conform to what works for other people. and we can put ourselves out there a little bit differently. So I would just wonder how, now that you have a bit more awareness, with regards to your energy, maybe this tendency to burn out, maybe this imposter syndrome, perfectionism, has anything shifted for you?
I think a few things have shifted. I think by having this light bulb moment, I've been able to be a little bit kinder to myself, to, as you say, to actually almost step out of my body and tell myself that actually you're okay, you're doing good. This is other things that are going on. And I think I've interviewed a couple of people in the Midlife Festival, like yourself, who have talked a lot about self-care. And so I'm very, and one of the smallest pieces of advice someone gave me in the festival that I'm recording at the moment is to, if you do nothing else, 10 minutes every day, just get out in nature, walk the dog, and actually just download your brain. Don't take your phone with, just look around you. And actually, I found that really, really helpful, because it's not overwhelming. It's actually, it's really important. So I think I'm on a journey. I think I will, at some point go for that diagnosis, so that I can almost, as you say, get some validation, and it will also then empower me to help everyone, because look after a very, very large online and offline community now. So yeah, I think it'll be a journey of discovery, I think.
Yeah, and I think what happens is that once we have the acceptance around it, it doesn't have the same impact because it's all the what if and the unknown. So when we haven't, if we've had a lifetime of living with our brains, which we have, and as we mature and get older and things change in our life and new life chapters begin, new things pop up. So we're able to, I mean, I always say this to clients, is that we're able to kind of make some space and get rid of the things that are no longer serving us. And we can start embracing the things that do work for us. And we can just let things go, the things that we thought were really important, the things that we should be doing, and
Mm.
actually just kind of like, embrace what's authentic to us and what works for us. And I hope that, what you're doing with all the lifestyle stuff with menopause is almost like an invitation for women as well to kind of know how they like to work and how they want to live and rest and work and be creative. And I guess it's just about embracing life on our terms as opposed to all the external stuff that's going around us.
100%. And I've got a 25-year-old daughter, and I've now kind of, I talk to myself now and say, look back at Katie, who was graduating age 21, as if she is your daughter now, and what would you say to her? And I'd actually kind of put my arms around her and say, it's not your fault. Try not to cry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, and I 100%, it is, there's an element of reparenting ourselves because there's an inner child there that was confused, that didn't know what was going on and didn't know why they were who they were and all the choices that they made. And so I do think it's a really important part. We talked in our conversation, which is going to be on the festival, about this sort of compassion that we have to give ourselves for what we didn't know and the grief that we go through. It's a process of all the things, but thankfully you've got this daughter who is now, got a very informed mum who is able to kind of guide her with all the wisdom that you've got now. And I try and tell myself that when I've got all these challenges with my kids in different capacities and I see it as they're getting older, hopefully I can give them a little nugget of information. Not that I know it all, because I'm literally learning on the job, but I definitely have more information for them than I guess my mum had for herself that she could give me. So yeah, we can't know. I think there's a big thing with ADHD is that we want to know it all now.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
want to have all the answers. We want to do everything now, and we need to have, like, often, patience for things to kind of unfold and be in the moment, which is really hard, and just kind of allow things to just be. But I just think your amazing honesty and your vulnerability and your guidance for other women is so helpful. So let's just talk about what women can expect from some of the sessions that you're able to provide, and then just tell people how they can find it, where they can log on, because I think lots of people would be interested.
Yeah, sure. So we've got a whole sort of health section. So we've got people like Dr. Nick Panay, who'll be talking about menopause. Dr. Hannah Short is going to be talking about early menopause. We've got Dr. Hamodia, who'll be talking about all sorts of menstrual disorders. Lots of other doctors talking about sort of sexual health, pelvic health, gynae health, breast cancer, heart health, contraception, even things like hair thinning and hair loss, which is really common in menopause. And then there's a well-being section of speakers who are going to be talking about stress management, relationships, obviously yourself, ADHD and menopause, finding a purpose, even a session on sort of coping with menopause after cancer. And then we've got nutrition, so sort of gut health, weight management, yoga, full body workouts for fitness. And we've got some lovely beauty and fashion sessions. We've got Ruby Hammer MBE talking about makeup. We've got Clarence talking about skincare, and the wonderful Cat Farmer, who, if people follow her, does My Bum Look 40, talking about midlife fashion. So there's amazing sessions, and the best way to find it is the midlifefestival.com. The whole week is free to watch every day, and we'll just email you each day how to watch it. And then, as I said, if you're busy or you miss a session or miss a day, and or you were really interested in one of the sessions and just can't remember it all, we've got this fantastic VIP pass, which, well, there's more information on the website about it. And in that VIP pass, will give you podcast versions of it so you can listen on the go. There's a great ebook on perimenopause and menopause understanding, and cheat sheets from each session. So lots to look forward to. I cannot wait to share it with everyone. And I'm very self-critical, so I'm actually going to say something which I would never say, is I'm actually really proud of it. Proud of what I've created. I'll probably burn out, Kate, after, but I will give myself hopefully a couple of weeks off before doing our next podcast series.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I'm listening to you and thinking, oh my God, like the ADHD brain is like amazing. How amazing to be able to create something like this, and the vision that you've had to really pull from all the directions and to offer it in podcast form and ebooks and all of that. But I do think that you might need to have a little rest afterwards.
For sure. And I'm
But
really
which I know is easier said than done, because we have a rest for about half an hour and then we're like, right, on to the next, what else, But I always say, let just rest in the way that feels good to you. A rest to someone else might be lying on the couch and not moving. For us, a rest might be kind of like a long walk, or going away for a few days, or going and doing a course, a workshop or something. But yeah, we need to rest in some capacity. But I just thank you, because I think what you've created for so many women is amazing. And I'm really happy to be part of it, and really happy to help you promote it, and wishing you lots of luck. And I'll put all the details in the show notes, so you will have it. You'll have it all there.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Kate. And you're doing amazing work too. So, yes, yay to us ADHD women.
Taking over the world, but burning out at the same time. But hopefully not. Thanks, Katie. So that's today's episode done. Did what we talk about resonate with you? I really hope you found some takeaways that may inspire you to make some small changes that enhance your daily life. And if you did find this episode insightful, please do consider sharing it. Knowledge and awareness is power, especially with ADHD. You can also head over to the show's Instagram page, which is ADHD Women's Wellbeing Pod, and join the community that's waiting for you there. And if this episode really did strike a chord, please do consider leaving us a review to enable more people who need to hear these conversations find the show. Thanks so much for joining me today, and see you next time.